What's going on, guys? Welcome to In the Zone. I'm your host, Garrison Roy, and we're going to have a little mental minute episode today. But if you're new to the podcast, just know that we have different segments of this podcast. So we have rants, which is just me kind of going on, rants and calling out some BS in the industry or just things that are irritating me and want to express and voice my opinions. The interviews are fully conversations with experts, athletes, or coaches within the industry that I value or see value in and want to share that with you guys as the audience to help progress the game. And then, like today, with the mental minutes, quick mental game hacks to help elevate your performance or just overall coaching or life in general. And then deep dive educational explorations into small intricacies of skill acquisition and being in the zone, because that's what we're talking about, is being in that flow state or being in the zone. But if you have any questions, topics, or suggestions, reach out to In the Zone Podcast 123 at gmail.com or reach out to any of the social media platforms that you see this episode: Instagram, Twitter, or X now. LinkedIn is the one that I'm posting a little bit more on as well. But yeah, without further ado, I do want to kind of start this off since this is the first episode of 2024. Appreciate you all bearing with me and being fans and sharing the show throughout 2023, first and foremost. But what better way to start it off? Everyone has these either resolutions or new goals, things like that. And, it's a good time to reflect. And it is kind of cliche. People say, oh, hey, like, I'm not that kind of guy to do the resolutions. It should be something that I do day to day. Well, yes and no. That is true, right? But it is something that you want to be able to take time and be through the holidays and finding out what really matters to you, right? What you're doing throughout your life. Is it your actual calling, or is this just something that you've kind of conjured up or someone else conjured up? You're trying to please them, whether that's coaching or another job or playing baseball could be even one of those. If, I've met several guys in the past where their parents are pushing them to play the game. And if this isn't something that you feel that fulfilled in, then that's definitely another conversation to be had. But I wanted to kind of touch on this book right here, The Creative Calling by Chase Jarvis. It was one of my favorite ones that I've read, and also rereading it for the beginning of 2024. But there's this, I guess, creative flow that we all have. And, obviously the title being Creative Calling, it's one of those things where everyone has to pick, and I mentioned this a lot, the red pill versus blue pill, right? Like, are you going to do what everyone else does, or are you going to, go against the flow, take that red pill and, do something out of the norm there? So with that being said, there is real risk or perceived risk when it comes to certain things like that, right? And a real risk would be losing your house or quitting your job whenever you literally have nothing else to get onto, right? Versus a perceived risk would be sharing some stuff on Instagram. Something very, very simple, and where you want to be able to have that creative flow, and some things that I've been able to cultivate, and how Rob Blanc, my business partners, helped me cultivate that too, through just continually posting, or in this case, doing podcasts, because it's something that helps me feel more alive whenever I'm in that creative mode and doing something that's a little bit outside of the norm or having my own thought process, right? So it really all boils down. And again, this is all going to circle back to the mental minute or the mindset side of things, where the Chase talks about a creative pyramid, right? We've all seen the Egyptian pyramids, and you've seen those maybe in like the food pyramids. You have one level, two, and then you have the peak there. The base level would be the mindset, right? And that's something that you want to be able to achieve, and what he says is foundation of achievement and fulfillment. That's what you're really trying to have. Is if you have a poor mindset, if you don't really believe that you can do something, then that's really going to push you back and help you not even reach any of those goals that you set out for this upcoming year of 2024, right? And that's where your habits follow. So think of it this way, that mindset being the base level, the habits being the one in the middle, and then the goals being that top tier portion of the pyramid, right? Because that's your desired outcome. But a lot of people start with the goals. They don't start with that mindset, or, they try to just do the habits. They try to go to the gym. They try to change the nutrition side of things. But what they need to change first is their mindset, right? And a lot of this part of a mindset does come from our environment. We've talked about this a lot as far as training is concerned, but this is also how you're being psychologically influenced through a lot of things that you're doing throughout the day, right? So you could think of this as creative, or, being in the zone, being in that flow state, right? As the zappers, getting you out of that state, getting you more scrambled, thinking about multiple different things like social media or watching the news, checking your email all the time, which is one that I personally, as a coach, and me trying to work on the business, first thing I do is I want to check emails or messages and things like that, text messages, right? But sometimes that can kind of put you in a more reactive state. And again, I'm not perfect at this. This is something I'm personally working on in 2024, where I'm going to be a lot more responsive versus reactive, and not have that being one of the first things in the morning that I check, because it can kind of throw your whole day out of the loop when you do that, right? Another zapper would be like overworking or working on the wrong things, right? And I've had experience of both of these, where several places that I've worked, I've overworked physically, I've overworked mentally, just being in front of a computer screen or doing a lot of other projects and things on the side, or just doing the wrong work, right? Like I'm trying to work on something, but a higher priority list would be something that I wanted to tackle there, right? And that's why I love using my reminders app on my phone. Those are the little prioritized tasks, and you can drag and drop them all the way up to the top on what's a higher priority. And that could be, your to-do list, if you want to call it that, or your critical task list that Andy Frisella calls his, which I'm a huge fan of. And, those of you who don't know, I've been doing that along with 75 Hard over the past year, and starting it back up this year for 2024, right? And that's being just more disciplined with your habits, right? You're instilling those daily habits, but again, you have to have the right mindset of why you're doing this, not just doing it because you want to do it. So if you guys want to find out more about it, feel free to research 75 Hard, but it's 2 workouts a day. It's reading 10 pages of a book, drinking a gallon of water, no cheat meals, no alcohol, and cold shower, right? And that's something that these things are what's going to boost your creativity or being in the zone, right? Is things that are going to help you hone in and be more focused on your day-to-day task or whatever you have laid out in front of you for that day, right? You can always count on, hey, you got to work on your craft. For pitchers, you got to work on throwing, your off speed or throwing your pitches or whatever it is, working on the delivery or your swing. You have to work on that first and foremost, for sure. Because doing a bunch of other little things, right, like the cold therapy or meditation, gratitude and visualization are all great. But if those are the only things you're doing day to day, you're probably not going to get better at the tasks that you need to be better at, right? You're not going to get better at shooting basketballs by playing the piano, or vice versa, right? But they do all kind of feed in. And same thing with nutrition or hydration. If you're not fueling your body, if you're not fueling yourself the best way possible, it's going to be really hard for you to perform and be in zone, right? Also, sometimes having a very organized routine, right? A lot of guys have this pregame routine where they go through, and one of my former teammates who's now a pitching coach at Morehead State, Lennon Steiner, he was almost a little bit to the point where it's obnoxious what his pregame routine was, where he would do the jog, he would have all of these stretches and things that he would do. He would put his bat in a certain position. He would put his glove in a certain position on the bench because that's just what he knew everything was going to be. So he was going to be able to go there and have all of that organized, right? And that helps you not have to worry or scramble and go look for things here and there. And I think there's something to that, right? Whether even if it's organizing a gym floor, organizing your desk to do your work or your classwork, or not having a million tabs opened up on your computer screen, or having your emails all scrambled up and not putting them in different folders or deleting them or reading them all throughout the day. Again, this shouldn't be the first thing that you should do. I'm kind of OCD when it comes to that. Having a little bit more organization does clear your brain, does clear your head, or not having a bajillion text messages, even if you don't read them, just delete them, right? Get that cleared out so that you don't have that brain fog going on. And another one that I'm going to be doing to kind of help boost some of my creativity and being in the zone is to create before consuming, right? So everybody's familiar where you go through and you just scroll by, right? You're on your phone, you're just like, okay, going through here, I like this, I like this. For me, before I even get on that, I want to be able to create something, whether I posting something myself or whether it's me creating something in the background or working on something as far as a project or whatever it might be, that I'm working on that before I go and consume or go watch Netflix or whatever, right? It's not saying you shouldn't do those things. You're always going to have plenty of time to be human and enjoy life. But I think it's very important that you do things to help create or help you get closer to your goals by staying in the zone and then doing the other stuff where you just kind of mess around later on, right? And lastly, the biggest one that can boost you being in the zone, and it's really simple, is sleep, right? If you're sleep deprived, you're probably not going to be able to stay focused. A lot of guys can mask this through caffeine and being able to do that for a short term. It'll work for a little while. And a lot of guys use that as a crutch, or they perform really well in one game after pulling an all-nighter, having to do schoolwork, and then they perform really well in one game, and then they make that caffeine a dependence or that crutch to where they have to have it before every single game, which isn't necessarily healthy. Not saying you shouldn't drink caffeine. Again, I'm just using this as an example because of the sleep side of things. You want to make sure that you're getting healthy enough sleep and you're not masking the lack of sleep with caffeine. So again, not demonizing caffeine, just demonizing lack of sleep and masking it with caffeine. So that's really some of the biggest things that I hope you guys take out of this and take into 2024 to help you get in the zone. And for those of you listening, I appreciate you and all that you do. If you got anything out of this episode, please share it and stay in the zone.